Here we are, and welcome to a reverse time traveling entropy version of the Friday Night Movie Podcast. I don't know. We're going to try to understand the movie Tenet today, which we just watched. And that's really going to be the focus of this conversation. So if you haven't seen it after we talk about the updates of our lives,
I think it's the opposite, Shai. I don't mean to interrupt, but since we're in reverse, what's the opposite of a spoiler? Because I think we're doing a service if people listen to this episode, then watch the movie.
That's fair. I will say,
Reverse
normally we would say spoiler. Actually, we don't even say spoiler alert half the time. But truly, this isn't a movie that's easy to understand. You kind of have to watch it, I think, backwards and forwards anyway. So we're going to talk about Tenet, and there's a lot of.
You could do multiple viewings.
There's a lot of awesome stuff to talk about, but I think you're going to also get some good funny bits in the process as we process this. So that's just the upfront warning to everyone. This episode is all about Tenet. And but before we get there, I would love to know, Becky, how goes the moving saga? You're now Airbnb'd up. It seems that your kids seem to be enjoying it. What's the latest?
Vlad thinks I've developed a facial tic as a response to all the stress. Which I'm realizing, I think is something mom does. I mean, our listeners won't be able to see, but I started going like this. You know, like kind of like curling my upper lip and like biting my lower lip at the same time repeatedly throughout the day every time somebody asks me a question about the move.
In fairness, though, the level of stress mom would have to have in order to do that versus you is much higher. Like for mom to get to that point, we really had to be actively
I'm pretty resilient. I'm pretty resilient. But yes.
You look great though, I gotta say. So
do I?
Yeah, you look awesome.
How can you see me through these bags under my eyes?
I mean, you're not well lit, but you look pretty great.
I've been up since 4. Thank you. I've been up since 4 a.m. So I appreciate that.
So Lily, so that's the Becky situation. My life's good. I'm eating chocolate bars with my kids on the chairlift. Like
yeah. I see you making your pocket chocolate sandwiches. All right. I don't even get me started.
Becky, I have
like facial tics, and I'm living in Tenet because I am both living in the past and present and future at the same time, because I think when you sleep as little as I do, time-space continuum becomes blurred, and what is now and what is past. And I am in a perpetual state of jet lag, which I imagine they must be too.
And you're putting things in large containers.
I didn't see a single person in that movie take a nap.
No, they did. They took a nap in the shipping container. That very
I guess it's the one time they sleep. I guess
this is one of the few movies where people actually nap. My life is great. We got a pocket. We got a pocket toaster, like a pocket sandwich maker, which my wife threw out my original one, I'm sure.
Why?
Because just it's like, you know, I've got a lot of stuff, and sometimes there's some casualties is the best way I can describe it.
Somebody thinks they could get rid of one of your things and you wouldn't notice. Well, shame on
buy it again.
So forever I've been talking about where is it? And Allie's just like, I have no idea. And I'm like, you know what? That's not true. But so what I did was the other day I showed the kids on YouTube, like I was like, guys, we need a pocket sandwich maker. And they're like, we do? And I'm like, yeah. So I showed them an infomercial on YouTube, and they were, oh my God, we have to get this. So I was like, yeah. And then, then I was like, all right, so here's the thing. Mom comes down, you tell her you saw this thing on YouTube and we've got to get it. And they totally told her that I told them to. But anyways, they're much cheaper now than they were years ago. I got the Hamilton Beach one for $17. It arrived. We put Wonder Bars.
We keep calling it a pocket sandwich maker so that other people understand what you're talking about. But in our household growing up, it was called a kvetch toaster.
It absolutely called a kvetch toaster. And the Greenman family in Israel is the first time we experienced the kvetch toaster. It was at their house in 1991. And I don't think they listened to the show, but that is it. And I don't know why it's called a kvetch, but a kvetch, does kvetch mean make a pocket sandwich in Yiddish?
I don't know, but last time I was visiting them, Sarah made me a kvetch toast, a kvetch sandwich. It's very special.
So that's what's going on in my life. Life is good here. Lily, how are you? And like, what's happening?
So,
was Jose just whispering? Is he trying to be on the show?
I just hear him whispering in the background.
Does he want to explain Tenet to us?
Oh, she's on mute now. Something's going on.
Oh
I
boy.
keep talking about myself. It's my favorite subject. Should I? What else would you like to know?
Beck, I would like to know.
Sorry, guys.
What?
Sorry. Somebody is married to somebody who doesn't understand like the concept of mute and unmute. And
I thought you wanted to explain Tenet to us.
He definitely does not want to explain that movie to you.
All right, Lil, quickly tell us how you are, and then let's jump into the movie.
I'm just going to say that, Shai, you said a great line to me today that my kids will be very confused about seasons. I don't know if it was today. I guess we talked yesterday or something. Or it was Becky. It was Becky.
I think you will be very confused in general. And
I also don't sleep. So this is a product of that. So we had a really cool few days because there was a really big storm here. And because even though I live in like a place where there's beach and beautiful weather and it's an island, it's extremely tall. It's 12,000 feet tall. So when there's a storm in the winter, we get snow at the top. But there was so much snow that about a half hour from the south where we're staying, you could drive up and like play in the snow. And so there was snow. It was amazing. So it's 12,000 feet height. At like 3,000 feet, there was already snow. So we like parked the car and went sledding and played in the snow. And then drove back home. About a half hour later, we're like in the pool and it's sunny. And Becky was just like, your kids won't like be able to communicate with other children about like what winter is. Because doesn't make any sense.
That's true. And I'll also say
it was very cool though. Like for someone growing up in Canada who like lived through like minus 30 winters, that was wild. Mind blown.
I will also say your kid, we have, because of the 90s nostalgia throwback conversation that Jenny and Huckberg,
somehow this was going to come back to this.
and I have been hosting on Mondays at noon. People should join us if they're in Clubhouse. But she is a huge Perfect Strangers fan, which has in turn gotten me back into watching Perfect Strangers, which has now immediately become our family show. The kids watch that show. Aged way better than I thought it would. It was first of all, it has the best theme song of any show ever, and it is so funny. Some of the bits they do about like the strangeness of America, like you're looking at through Balky's eyes in some ways. Like he talked about the ridiculousness of banking. He does this whole bit on the ridiculousness of banking, which I really appreciated. But as I always say, when your kids come to hang out with my kids, it's going to be like my kids get their very own Balky Bartakamus with their like, well, it's not Mediterranean in your case, but it is like an island dwelling foreign cousin.
Sure. Closest Mediterranean counts.
With an amazing accent. So I will enjoy them also being confused about seasons. Now
I'd like to rewatch that show.
It's on Hulu. It holds up really, 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 really well. We blew through the first season is like almost like a pilot. It's not really the show as I remembered it, but we knocked out the first season in like a night. But speaking of seasons and confusing timelines, let's talk about Tenet. Now, Lily, you wrote the outline of today's show, but I'm going to host. So I'm going to ask the question that you asked that I was going to answer. So I'll pretend you ask your opening question that you wanted to ask, and I will answer it.
Will you show off?
I'm ready.
Okay, let's do it.
For a movie I didn't understand, I understood a lot of this movie.
Okay, so I can ask you.
For a movie I understood, I didn't understand a lot.
So I'll just ask you.
I inverted it.
Can you explain the movie in 2 minutes? Go. Wait, should I time you?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, timing you. Well, I'll time you. Try to do it in 2 minutes.
All right, well, tell me when it starts. Tell me when the timer starts.
Okay, 1, 2, 3, go.
In the future, there is a group of people who have seen the destruction of the world as we have lived it play out. And they are using a type of time travel that's different than what we normally see in Back to the Future and other things. I'll get to that in a moment, to send operatives back to protect or change the timeline depending on who you are dealing with. Some people are trying to use this massive algorithm, which is the MacGuffin of the movie, the thing they're looking for, that will essentially end the universe. And other people are trying to break up the pieces of this algorithm to prevent the end of the universe. The character at the center of this is played by John David Washington as an operative, part of this mysterious organization called Tenet. And he is thrown into a plot where he is working with agents that can travel both forward and backward in time simultaneously as they try to uncover the pieces of this plot, at the center of which is a Kenneth Branagh playing a Russian oligarch who has the key to this big algorithm that can blow up the universe, and his disenchanted wife, who is kind of like the femme fatale love interest slash moral center for John David Washington's character as he tries to navigate this plot. He's joined by Robert Pattinson, who is a mysterious operative who is helping them and always seems to know a little bit more than us, the audience, and him throughout. And you are left throughout the movie, I won't ruin the end, not sure at which side he is on.
Ooh, minute and 50 seconds.
Okay, so first of all, you're initially incorrect because they have not seen the destruction of the world. What they know is that a technology exists that would lead to the destruction of the world. And they have tasked themselves, because they know about this, with making sure it is not reassembled.
There are two separate groups. Tenet is trying to stop the device from being created. The people who created the device want to destroy the world. They're trying to reverse time backwards because the world basically, the rivers rise. They explain it. The rivers rise.
It's because of climate change, which I thought was like a rando, like funny thing to just throw in there. Like their mission.
So they have seen because of this technology.
Change.
They've seen the end of the world, and so their only way to save the world is to reverse age the world, is to basically annihilate the universe and have time go backwards. The Tenet people are trying to keep time proceeding the way it is proceeding and try to make a better world rather than try to.
But they haven't seen, but they haven't seen the world destroyed because of the technology. They're just saying they see the world.
They're trying to stop climate change basically by killing everyone.
Got it.
Those are the bad guys. The good guys are trying to stop these people.
And
who
so
are trying to annihilate
Priya
the universe.
a bad guy on the bad guy side?
No, she's on the good. She's on the Tenet side.
She's a bad guy because she's an arms dealer, but she's working with the Tenet.
She's on the Tenet side. Okay,
but that's like you're jumping way into it. We have now really confused people.
Oh, right. Hold on. Wait, Priya is part of the Tenet side.
Yes,
but then who's on the bad guy side?
The bad guy side is Kenneth Branagh and the mysterious people that you never see. And like his little
like the Russian looking guy that works with him.
His reason has not because of climate change. He wants to destroy the world because of, the huge spoiler of like what's revealed at the very end.
Well,
that if he's going to die, then the world should die with him.
He's just activating it and choosing the time when to activate it.
And he's in charge of collecting the pieces. They picked him because he was a guy who was A, amoral, and B,
he's in the right place at the right time. He had been
exposed to all this plutonium when he worked in Eastern Europe, and so he was going to die of cancer anyway. And so they picked the right guy who would be willing to destroy the universe. They needed someone who would be willing to do it, and he was the guy.
I think if you just knew what we just said, like if someone had told me what you're saying now, and I went to watch it, it would not ruin anything. Like I'd be going into it.
It would just help you understand motivation.
Yeah, like much more like informed. And then I think if we like even said something as easy as the color coding in the movie, if you knew about that before, you'd enjoy it better. Red is forward, blue
to me, that's what's great.
But they explain that to you
at the end.
At the end, they tell you.
But
the movie is also
at the beginning. I'd kind of like enjoy it even more.
Well,
which maybe is designed so you watch it multiple times and get more out of it. But I'm saying I don't think any of this is a spoiler. If someone had told me all of this before, I'd be like, cool. Now I understand.
Part of what you have to understand in the movie, and I feel like it is worth telling people this, at exactly the hour and a half mark, because I looked at it, at the exactly in the hour and a half mark, like the first half of the movie plays out with the main character whose eyes you're watching the movie through, not knowing what's happening. At the exact hour and a half mark, they then start, they explain to you the rules of the universe, however complicated they are to understand. They do some Basil exposition, and then you're kind of running back through the movie you've already seen for another hour with a grand finale, with like sort of a separate grand finale that then starts to make things more sense. I think that movie runs for an hour and a half without you remotely understanding what the rules are, other than that some people are going forwards and some people are going backwards.
Right. And even when they're in the room, like the pivotal scene where the cat gets shot, and, you know, where they realize they have to go back, right, to save her or whatever. They're like, the lighting in the room is, the forward one is red and the backwards one is blue. Like, the color coding is throughout the whole movie. It's explained with the uniforms of the guys at the very end, but it's been throughout the whole movie. We just didn't notice. So I kind of wish I knew before.
So first of all, my general explanation, I feel like, explains the general thing in the movie. And what I like about this movie is that movies feel like now they're overly long because they have to explain you every detail. Like every nerd wants every Easter egg explained. And as we've seen with the Alien spinoffs, like, no, you don't need to know everything. And I like that this movie is extremely challenging to understand, and that it's actually similar how I feel about the movie Us. Like, yeah, okay, we could try to scientifically figure out why the movie Us, the rules work.
Right. That's not the point. Right. I'm not trying to figure out entropy to get the movie to make sense to you.
I don't understand the reverse entropy, but they do a good job later in the movie when they explain to you that if you're, depending on from which universe you are, you're basically moving against the grains of time and physics, or you're not. Again, there must be some like quantum theorist that came up with this. It's very hard to understand because it's not linear, but the movie repeatedly tells you, if you look at time as linear,
and at one
you're not
point in the third act, in the third act, the kind of like the guy that's in charge of the actual last final mission says to the protagonist, to John David Washington, he's like, if you're still thinking about time linearly, you just forget it, you don't understand. And that's like
you shouldn't be on this mission.
You shouldn't be on this mission or whatever.
That's Aaron Taylor Johnson, BTW.
Is it really? Oh, I didn't recognize him. So as you go into that final battle, you get that sort of setup to be like, time is not linear, you know?
But also I think a crucial thing.
No, I like that. I like that as like a reminder going into it.
And then at the same time, time travel works differently in this movie. I think, just like, I'm going to interrupt my own self by saying, all those like Netflix action movies, and we can get into this later, that are confusing and don't make any sense are so annoying because A, they're not good, and B, no one sat down and thought it out. They're just throwing words on a page. Whereas, Christopher Nolan, and behind this is drawn out. It's just very complex. And maybe he wanted to make a 4.5-hour movie and cut it down to 2.5, so not everything's in there, but it more or less has like some sense behind it. But wait, what I think is cool is that the time travel, you have to wait the amount of time. When you go through the turnstile to go in reverse,
that took me a while to figure out.
Traveling back in time. You're then sitting in a shipping container waiting for the days to pass till you get to that moment.
Oh, you are? Yeah, I didn't catch that at all. And I rewatched
but that makes sense.
The way that the time travel works, that you're literally, the way that time travel works in the movie is that you're literally just moving backwards in time at the same pace.
It's a rewind and a fast forward, but in normal time, in real time.
That's wild. Okay, that makes...
You have to sit and wait. So Becky was like, why the hell are they sitting in that box? And I was like, you're right. And I looked it up. Like, I didn't come up with this by myself. And I was like, oh, yeah, that makes a lot more sense.
I intuitively understood that in terms of going back in time, because one of the things, and this reminded me a little bit of 12 Monkeys, another movie that has some funky time travel rules, where and they had established this. And this is what is cool about this movie. If you're thinking hard, if you're paying attention and you're not asking to be spoon-fed, they did establish the rule that people in the future are putting things in a place, and then those things, because of reverse entropy, are manifesting in the past. in that exact place, which is how they were getting things to
the posterity,
Kenneth Branagh.
Like, and the whole posterity thing. Aaron Taylor Johnson, the character Ives, who helps at the end climax scene, he's a soldier of posterity. He says he's been waiting. He's been in reverse, then he goes back forward, but he's been waiting from the future to get to this moment. That
that makes sense why he knows why all those soldiers know so much and are so prepared. Got it.
Right. They've been waiting for this moment.
That's really cool. And so I would say, like, there's the talking about the roles, all the rules of this movie, but I would say the big question for me is this, and this is my question for you all, and I think this like frames where we go, and then we can get into characters and things like that. Is this movie a confusing mess of Christopher Nolan fetishes of like time travel and Memento, right? Like, is it just like is it a mashup
of
getting
to make his like stew of all the things he wanted to make in a movie now that he's famous?
Right, exactly. Or is it an ambitious almost masterpiece? Is it really like he's just like bending your brain and the rules?
I'm leaning to the former.
I'm leaning
to the latter.
Sorry,
I'm leaning. So you're going in reverse.
No, yes, I'm leaning for the fact that it really is mind bending because I actually am curious. I am curious to rewatch it and see what the experience is like the second time, understanding more. And I think while watching it, I thought, it doesn't quite make sense, and why does he care so much about this woman and who is, and then I think though that it is it's a very elevated film. Now, what I believe separates Nolan from a lot of other directors is that his films and his characters are quite cold. There's right, and I think where as viewers we push back being like, well, was it that good? Is because we're used to all of these films, especially when we think about, superhero films, right? These big action films, they have to pull on our heartstrings and we get so emotionally attached. And he doesn't operate that way. Even a movie like Memento, where it's a tragic personal, movie, right? It's a tragic personal story about a man losing his wife. The characters are quite cold and quite non-emotional, almost like robotic. So I think like that's a huge way
John David Wright, right? But I think the protagonist is probably one of the warmer characters he's ever written because he has this like intense, like moral and like even heartfelt, desire to help this mom.
Yeah, but it's just like, but still, it's
not a love story. He's not. It's not like in Mission Impossible when he always ends up with like a wife at the end of those movies.
Well, so I am with you. I think this movie, I applaud Nolan for showing us time travel in something that we haven't seen before.
That's like real tough. Yeah.
And when you think back to The Matrix, when The Matrix sort of changed everything, The Matrix is still a movie that the first one in particular, that you can understand. In fact, one of the reasons why I think that second and third one just nobody gets. Now, those are not as good movies, but like they just get so weird and like, what are the rules that people can't connect to them? Like The Matrix is easier. This movie is tough on the brain, but I think I like this 1,000 times more than Inception. I think this was a much better movie than Inception.
Well, that's interesting.
I liked the very narrow cast in this. It didn't have that A-team sort of nonsense. Right. I thought
there's like 4 characters in this movie.
Yeah, I thought that was really cool. And I liked that Inception also was mind-bending, but I thought this movie was more interesting. And I thought the effects and stuff that they did with the reverse and forward things happening at the same time, that literally is something I've never seen before. That I don't know. Inception was a lot of like world building on the spot, but this was stuff that it was like watching an Escher painting. while an action movie was
right.
happening where you felt stakes? Like, how do you do that?
Well,
That's incredible.
Well, the other thing again that is exciting about Nolan, you think about the history of the way that he directs action sequences, is that he leans far more into practical effects, right? Remember when he did Dark Knight? The big deal
Dark Knight.
is how
I was
much
trying
of it
to
is practical.
explain that. Yeah.
How much of it
I was
is
trying to
practical
explain that
effects.
to
And
everyone when we were watching. I was like, you don't understand how incredible these special effects are.
So what Vlad initially complained, he's like, I don't know, these car chasings aren't that cool. I'm like, yeah, except that they're real. Like that they're,
right,
I mean, for the most part. So like these scenes are phenomenal because for the most part, they're really happening.
I feel like
you remember
there's
that.
barely CGI in this movie and barely like digital like reconstruction and stuff. And I'm sure there's plenty with the whole inverted thing. But when they do the Ford truck like attack on the armored car, that I was like, this is amazing. I don't want more. I don't need more. I don't need like, what was that? The triple, not the triple one, but the one with Ryan Reynolds where I couldn't even finish it on Netflix.
6 Underground.
I've never seen so many fucking explosions in that movie. Like it's like enough. You know what I mean? It was so annoying.
I don't remember that one at all.
Also,
this was just like really clear cut. I feel like action sequences that were so cool to watch.
And with Nolan, the details really like. His details are small. There's a scene that they show you multiple times. You don't realize you're going to see multiple times when he bounces the case with the MacGuffin off the hood of a car, and it goes into Kenneth Branagh's hands, and it defies physics, but in a very subtle way. But it looks so real, where you're like, "What just happened? How did he just bounce that off a car?" But it doesn't look fake.
And it works because of like the whole inverted thing.
And the scene where he's fighting, where he's fighting this sort of hooded character. We'll try not to give that away. But what I also found interesting is that there was a lot of this movie on a big like 50,000 foot level. I predicted, meaning very early in the movie, I was like, well, obviously the person he's working for is himself. Obviously the person Pattinson is working for is himself. Yeah, I said it to Allie like an hour.
I wasn't surprised, but I didn't get that he was working for himself. I knew that everybody I think knew that Pattinson was clearly more than he seemed.
But I was convinced Pattinson was his guy. Like I was pretty.
He gives it up. I guess you're right. He gives it up when he tells him you don't drink on the job. That's the biggest clue. He knows him.
Yeah, he knows him, and I also knew that like whatever it wasn't plutonium, right? Like there were a lot of, but I think that is okay because this movie then doesn't also try to throw a bunch of like crazy twisty twists on top of being insanely complicated, because it like allows the movie to be a traditional movie and at the same time blows your mind at the same time. I think. Sorry, Beck. Go ahead.
Oh no, go ahead. No. I was sorry.
Let's talk about the characters and the acting, if we can move on.
That's what I want to talk about.
I will just say one quick thing. I appreciate a movie that is designed in a way that it's not the movie's fault that you didn't get it all the first time, and you're meant to go back and rewatch and enjoy the experience in a different way. They're few and far between, and so that's why I would say like definitely leaning to Masterpiece to like sum that up, because I would love to watch this again with all the information that we have.
Yeah, watch it together. I mean, just to sit down and watch this together.
Because apparently, I don't know if you guys saw. I didn't remember seeing this, but apparently the actual he has a piece of the algorithm, right? And it's not in the red case that he throws to Branagh, right? He's tricking him, but he apparently chucks it into the silver car that's inverted. That is his other self with the mask that we then see from a different point of view.
Oh wow, that's what was going on there. Okay, that's amazing.
Yeah,
so there's tons of little details like that. So part of what made this movie so watchable and so engaging for me, and again, I got to compare it to these Netflix garbage movies which have great charismatic characters and actors, but who just don't seem like either the directors didn't, capture the right performance, or they're just rushing through it. But John David Washington, Robert Pattinson, who I love Robert Pattinson and Kristen Stewart. I can't stand the Twilight movies, but both of them I think are fantastic. But Pattinson, who I recently saw in The Lighthouse, is amazing in this movie. John David Washington is amazing. Kenneth Branagh, one of the actors of our time.
I mean,
and then there's like one or two other people, but these folks are committed to this film and to these characters.
Can you turn the?
And
Vlad, is
Beck,
someone playing with
yourself.
my keyboard or mouse?
Hey,
can you turn the Bluetooth connection
Becky,
off?
Can you mute yourself?
Beck, you're
Should I
not
just mute her? You have to mute her.
And so they are just they're so committed and so charismatic that I absolutely love. I loved watching them. I was sort of like, I don't really get what's going on, but
exactly. But that's also like so crucial, because I bet you some part of Nolan is like, okay, people have to hang in here. They're not going to understand a lot of this, but these guys are so great. Everyone wants to keep watching. And
they're all in on this movie, right? Like John David Washington is not half-assing a performance here. Now, he's a big movie star, but he's not as big as he's going to be. I mean, to me, John David Washington is the future.
He's going to be, huge. And even like Aaron Taylor Johnson, who I think is fantastic. He's a great actor. He's got a small part, but he's so good in the part.
So good.
You know what I mean? Like he's wonderful in the part. And the guy, Hamish Patel from, he was in Yesterday. He was great. And
he's great. He was so great. When they're talking about the airplane, when they're talking about what they're going to do to the airplane, and and he's like, "What? They're going to be fine. We'll just chuck them out the slide. It's fine. It's not like they're going to die."
I thought he was great. I like the way they team him up with Elizabeth, Kat in the movie, but Elizabeth Debicki's character at the end. So everybody really brings it in this movie.
But I was, so interesting about Robert Pattinson is that I haven't really seen him in much. I saw the first Twilight, but I think that's one of the only things I've ever seen him in. So I don't really know. I know him as like a celebrity,
Cedric
but I don't.
In Harry Potter 4.
Yes, in that role as well. But I really don't know him very well as an actor. I don't know his performances. And he was, now I'm like, I'll watch him. What are we watching him in? What are we watching next?
Go watch him in The Lighthouse.
Great.
It's a really hard movie to watch, but he is so great. There's just him and Willem Dafoe yelling at each other for an hour and a half. And he's so good in it. But I also love, here's a guy who was this heartthrob character, big time star. He's going to be in the new Batman. He could just be doing movies where he's at like lower quality movies where he's at the top of the bill, more Twilight nonsense, whatever, or do some and he's playing a supporting role in this bigger Nolan thing and giving everything he's got.
True, but can I, if you don't mind me going a bit out of order with the questions, that does bring an excellent entry into the point of, is he the hero though?
He's not the protagonist, story. Which is a great bit about the story. He is a hero of the story.
Wait, what made you think at the end that maybe he's not? You weren't sure what side he was on. What made you say that? Or were we talking about him?
Me?
Or were you talking about? So at the very beginning, you're like, oh, and then it ends, and you're not sure who's on which side.
I didn't say that. I didn't say that.
I thought one of you guys said that at the beginning of this.
No. I'm saying that it's a bit part. He's a sidekick, but
at the very beginning of our. All right, whatever.
No, I don't remember saying that, but I'm saying that the Pattinson is a bit part, right, Shai? Like you're saying, it's a juicy role though, because he's he's charismatic and he's like a way more knowledgeable spy. He's got to downplay it, and in the end, he's the hero, of the general story. You know what I mean? He has to die. I mean, sorry, spoiler alert. It doesn't really spoil it though, but right, you guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
So I'm saying that you don't even see you see his reverse death on screen, I guess, but you don't even necessarily he doesn't get all that shining moment. But when he walks away and says goodbye to John David Washington and goes into the helicopter, he's got to go take a bullet for him.
Right, that's his next thing that he has to do.
That's his next thing that he has to go do. And I'm like, this is a phenomenal role. I feel like,
that's where I don't
understand
how time works, because at that point, is he going to go reverse himself again to go take the planet?
Yeah.
But that's where I also say just watch them. But that's where I would also say is just like, let's rewatch the movie and try to figure all those things out and focus instead on sort of the performance and how he makes that compelling, because both of them together, to be honest, like there's this moment where he says, oh, we get up to some adventures, or we get up to some stuff together, where I'm like, yes, please give me the James Bond movie of John David Washington and Robert Pattinson. I don't care. Like,
I know.
I would watch them in 100 Mission Impossible movies with no time travel after watching this movie.
Their chemistry was fantastic. And their chemistry was just fantastic. And they were great roles. That's the thing too. It's like, I think the Netflix has a lot of problems with it. And those actors are good actors. It's also like the writing for them. Like, and the writing in this, every line is, done really well, measured, and delivered excellently. So.
All right. So overall, I'm hard buy on this movie.
Yeah, agreed. I want to see it again.
You need to buy it because you need to watch it multiple times.
Right, exactly. I think
on it with a bunch of friends if you need to, but like watch it more than once.
And I don't know the whole story with his box office and it having a 70% on Rotten Tomatoes, which we know is nonsense anyway. But like the fact that this movie was sort of viewed as the thing that during the pandemic didn't save movies as it was supposed to, and then you compare that to Wonder Woman, which was confusing just because they didn't tell the whole story. they could
I was thinking about Wonder Woman during this. That's so funny, and I forget. Oh, I'll connect the thought later, but I was thinking about like a big contrast between about the bad guy in Wonder Woman versus the bad guy in this. And I was just laughing.
There were these were the two movies that were supposed to save, movie theaters, and Wonder Woman saved it, but like Wonder Woman's like a really easy movie to like. Like you in both movies, you have to turn yourself over and sort of not ask too many questions about the plot, because you just have to like enjoy what's happening and let it unfold. But in Tenet, there's actually like a really, really well constructed plot that you want to go back and learn.
The difference is I don't give a shit about the plot of Wonder Woman. Like, I know it doesn't matter to me. I don't care. I don't think it's there.
But it's also rewatchable.
The treasure hunt. Sure, fine, but I'm not. I'm
never rewatching Wonder Woman. Are you out of your mind?
I've already watched like half of it a second time. It's just because I love those actors and it's fun.
But fine, sure, watch it again for fun. But I'm saying is that Tenet, I want to understand the plot, and I've read a bunch of articles, and like I'm not going as far as like Reddit forums, but I'm like those people, like because of those forums, I now understand a lot better because the articles I've read compile all that stuff, and the people that wrote articles about the movie have seen it 5 times. Right? To like
I feel like
I think that's a lot of fun.
I feel like with Tenet, with Christopher Nolan, he's not saying I don't have to explain my art to you. I think what he's saying is if you watch this movie enough times, you'll understand my art. It's all there for you. You just have to do the work. And that's why I think it's a
and you're going to have to suspend belief on certain things like you do in every movie. Like, I'm not going to pretend to, like, explain.
This movie was great.
Nitty-gritty.
Also, it's just nice to see time travel done in a different way. Back to the Future is amazing. But it's and Avengers tries to do the same thing where it's like, look, everybody thinks Back to the Future is a definitive story of time travel, but there are lots of other ways to understand it. But like this movie was also way better than that last Avengers movie. Like way better, way more interesting.
Are you going to do MVP?
Yeah, let's do MVP. Let's do MVPs. Okay, so Lily, your MVP.
My MVP is gonna be Washington, because I just like every time his like face was on the screen, I just was like, I just enjoyed it so much. You know what I mean? And when his face was covered and he was talking, it sounds like Denzel Washington, which is so cool. I just like, and when you say next generation, it's literally like the progeny of one of the greatest actors of all time behaving in a way that like is like elevating.
But even I think he's a better I think he's a better action star than his dad. I think
exactly
he fits the Bourne. He fits the Bourne, but also like, look, John David Washington. When was the first time you heard that guy's name? You heard it, what, Ballers?
What?
Like,
and then Black Klansman.
Exactly, and then Black Klansman. But it's not like, unfortunately for poor Will Smith's son, like where Will Smith is like putting his son in every movie. Like John David Washington. I feel like this guy's earned his place. Like if I never knew he was Denzel Washington's son, he would be absolutely one of my favorite actors right now.
Oh yeah, for sure.
I'm also going to say
it has nothing to do with.
I'm also going to say John David Washington, the protagonist, but for me, because of his arc and his growth, and I think this is like a complicated movie, and then for him to also have growth as a character and to develop, and you see the transformation in the performance. I thought he was just very compelling to watch throughout.
Mm-hmm. I just realized as you said that the name of his character is protagonist, which I think is so
the
cool.
He's the protagonist, and he says it.
It's so cool because
Priya. He says, "I'm the protagonist," and she goes, "You're one of the protagonists."
It's also one of the things that says. It's also one of the things that says, yes, certain things we're going to just make totally clear to you about this movie because so much of it is hard to understand. So, like, he's the guy. Yeah. He's the protagonist.
It's a great bit.
I agree with John David. But my MVP is going to be like not a person because in this case, I guess it relates to people because I'm going to accept the fact that John David Washington is like my favorite part of this movie. And then of course, Pattinson. The sound. I think the sound in this movie.
I was thinking about that too.
Was so amazing. The way
it's funny because I read a lot of articles criticizing it, like the sound. I was going to ask Becky what she thought.
It's phenomenal.
But you didn't find a lot of the time the noise muffled what they were saying,
that was so deliberate. The snipping of the sound sounded like reversed sound a lot of the time. Like it was disorienting. It was so
apparently the reason that Branagh uses the walkie-talkie is because it's translating his like backwards talk.
Yes, we saw the movie. We know that. I'm talking about I'm talking about the score. I'm talking about
in reference to the backwards talking.
But can Shai just finish his thought?
Thank you.
Because you just cut him off like 4 times. I want to hear what he was he never actually said what he liked about the sound. Go.
The noises, there were those abrupt noises like that were always blaring throughout the movie. That were like aggressive, but they felt like they were really they were part of telling the story. It wasn't just those ominous like gong sounds that they put in sci-fi movies. It was so deliberate, and to me it was so unique because it was also ambitious and gutsy because it was really unsettling. But he made a movie that was hard to watch where I actually appreciated it. So that's
I particularly like the sound in the reverse scenes, right? When the reverse fight scene in the Freeport, like that scene in particular really got me the way it was muted down and you're hearing it anyways. That scene is when I think I locked into how brilliant the sound is.
So all right, let's go least valuable. Least valuable, Lily, who is your LVP?
Kat, Elizabeth.
Agreed.
She wasn't bad. She's a great actress, but I didn't really care if she whatever she does. And she risks blowing up the entire world forever because she just can't not get revenge. That's lame. It lucks out for her, but it's annoying.
I get that she's supposed to be like Shai was thinking, she's kind of like the moral center perhaps, or the femme fatale, but it doesn't quite make sense to me why John David Washington, why the protagonist is willing to sacrifice the entire planet for just one lady.
It would have been cooler maybe
much of a connection with
if they would have told him that they need her for the mission, that they can't let her die then because they need her to recover and go back and stop, hold him off from killing himself so they can defuse the bomb. Basically, as just him being a nice guy was a bit.
Well, except that the only reason that happens is because he gives up the last piece of the algorithm to save her. Which that moment I was like, that doesn't hold for me.
But it could be an Avengers Endgame situation where they also have to whatever. To your point, you're right. But it could be a situation where he has to, like, all of that has to play out, right? If he knows but doesn't know what he knows, right? And what Priya says to him at the end, that, oh, like, you used her.
It was on purpose. Yeah.
He was using her because I guess they calculated the only way to stall Kenneth Branagh right at the end was to have her go back and play herself. But yeah,
and remember that Priya and all them are using him to give it up to. They want Kenneth Branagh to have all of them together so that they could stop it. Right? Priya's she's like, he goes, you just used me basically to bungle the whole thing so that you can have it right where you want it. And then she's like, yeah, but you're using Kat, so it's just like you're not any better than me.
Either way, Kat was the least interesting, the least compelling. It was hard to care about her and her son and all of that, and that. All right, most
extremely tall.
She's like 7 feet tall.
She's very tall
and Australian. By the way, she's a great actress. It's not like a fault of hers. Just the character, like the whole storyline, her storyline, and the character. You know, she's great in Widows. And The Night Manager, she's a good actress. It's just it's like the weakest part of the movie.
Yeah, it's hard. It's the earned part with her. I guess, again, if you rewatch it with the idea that she was an integral piece of the puzzle the whole time, and that it wasn't really John David Washington was like in love with her or something. In fact, the question I have at the end is his next move he's going to kill her? That she's the last loose end? Is that the next thing that is going to happen? Because Nolan always leaves you with a question mark at the end. Is that the question mark we're left with?
Well, I guess he said, like, if
someone killed, if he wanted her dead, wouldn't he just let her?
Yeah, but he made a point to Pattinson at the beginning where he says, if someone's going to kill you, it'll be me. I'll make the choice. So he doesn't want other people to do it. So maybe.
Got it.
I don't think he's going to kill her.
But we're not that invested in her survival, that's maybe a flaw. We're just like, maybe he kills her. As opposed to the spinning top at the end of Inception, right? Where you're like, is it real or not? All right, most improved.
Oh, yeah.
Most improved.
Oh, for me? Or for me, it's Robert Pattinson. Because I effing hate that guy from the Twilight movies. He's the worst piece of shit actor. This is the worst movie I've ever seen. Like, I was like, this guy, I don't understand how he was cast in this role. I was just like, this movie's a hot mess, and he's the worst, and she's the worst. Like, everything about that movie is the worst. Now, clearly, either he's gotten better at acting, or that movie's terrible, and he's actually great. And his approval over the last 10 years or 15 years from whenever that movie came out, probably 15, 20 years, I guess, is mind-boggling. I could not take my eyes off of him either, and I thought he was amazing. So
yeah, agreed.
Yeah, our Pat is like in my good books now.
He's great.
His
character's great. I thought he was great. I'm going to give it to Branagh. Haven't seen him in a while. Nice to see him Allie kept saying as we're watching it, why did they pick Kenneth Branagh to play a Russian villain? I'm like, I don't know, but it's just fun to see him acting up a storm.
Because he's a great actor. You know what I mean? Like, I guess they could have picked someone Russian, but
I thought
he's an awesome actor.
I thought he was a good villain. All right, let's go do some shout outs and recs and wrap the show. Lily, what are you watching that isn't Tenet?
What am I watching? Season 2 of The Code, because that's got 2 seasons. So we ended like the season 1 and like had to start the first episode of season 2 kind of like right away. And so far really good. I recommend that show on Netflix. Australian like mystery suspense thriller.
And Beck, how about you?
Pretty much it.
I'm watching a lot of Rescue Dragons with my 3-year-old. That's about all.
That's awesome. I love watching shows with my kids. You just keep training them because
it's absolutely adorable.
One day it'll be perfect strangers. That's all I can say.
She said, I know. She says to me, she goes, Mommy, come watch a show with me. Mommy, come watch my show with me.
That's my dream.
I get on the couch and we snuggle. She goes, let's watch Rescue Dragons. I'm the red dragon. And I go, okay. I'm the purple dragon who burps. I'm Burple, the purple dragon who burps all the time. That's the one she's told me.
And I'll just say, I put what I'm watching up at the top of the show. Just the Dana Di Lorenzo saga continues. The next installment in it was Lily was having a rough day. And Beck and I knew how important Get the Rhythm from Perpetual Grace was. So we put in a request to her for a cameo, and one of the best cameo. I mean, we've had a lot of really good cameos, but that was pretty amazing what she did.
Well, say that again. That was pretty amazing. I missed what you said.
Dana Lorenzo, the cameo she did for you was amazing.
Oh, yes. I didn't know if I couldn't hear the end. Were you asking me a question?
I was saying, yeah, it was like a Canadian ask. It was a very Montreal accent kind of ask. It was a statement with like a little bit
amazing.
of a question mark.
It was amazing because I don't think it counts as a cameo. It was a video. Like I got sent a video because it was long, and she was wonderful. And she did the whole mantra multiple times that I would probably play. I'll probably play it for myself. Just that last bit over and over again, because the mantra is good already, and then to have someone from the show actually say the mantra to you personally is just like amazing.
And I feel like she really knows that she's really, whether she likes it or not, she's part of the family now. She's
yeah. Like goals in life, she's, unfortunately for her, there will now be like a triple assault on her to come on this podcast.
Yeah, because she
via Twitter. So
because we don't
we're gonna wear her down.
When we bring someone on, even if they're famous, like it's because we want them to be part of the family. It's not because, we want to have that famous person so we can talk to that famous person. We look for guests that we feel like like they're sitting at our table with us, having fun with us. And so she was just going to be perfect one day when we're able to get her on the show. Okay. With that, Becky, where can people follow you?
At Paper BK Princess on Twitter.
Lil, where can people follow you?
Chichi, ChiChik Gomez on the Twitter.
And you can follow me at Pancake and the number 4 table on Twitter and Instagram. Friday Night Movie on Twitter and Instagram is for the podcast, or FridayNightMoviePod.com. Please join us in checking out, and if you see fit, we definitely see fit supporting the NAACP Legal Defense Fund and the Equal Justice Initiative, 2 really important organizations doing important things for our democracy in this country. And with that, the theme music from What Does It Eat will kick in, and we will dance our way into this. This is being recorded the day of the Super Bowl, which means coming up will be our Super Bowl commercials review, hopefully with Bobby Buttons returning again. So stay tuned. That episode's coming.
Very exciting.
Love you guys, and talk to you soon. Bye.
Bye.